I hit rock bottom in 2018 when I found myself sitting on the floor of a Kuala Lumpur hotel room after having ran away on a 2-month supposed sabbatical, leaving behind the company I had founded, my future wife, and my parents. But that rock bottom also marked a key turning point in my spiritual journey. And so today, I want to share with you some of the stories from over the last few years of how staying open to different spiritual traditions not only allowed me to pick myself up from that pit I found myself in, but also to re-engage with life. My hope for you is that you'll take away some new ideas and maybe some new curiosity, regardless of where you are on your spiritual journey. Now, like many of you, I started my career in my early 20s full of drive and full of ambition to make something of myself. I started climbing what I like to call the mountain of materialism. And I thought that if I climb high enough and reach a certain level of success, the anxieties of daily life would just fall away and I would be blissfully happy. But after working relentlessly on my startup for 5 years and reaching some good milestones along the way, I actually found myself getting further from, rather than closer to that dream of happiness. I started to feel more anxious, more restless, and empty inside. And so when those feelings became too unbearable, I ran away on that sabbatical. Now, thankfully, after sitting in that room for almost a week, I managed to pick myself up and tell myself I have to try something new. And so I started reading about meditation, which for many people is a first step into spirituality. It was really tough for me at first, but I tried different forms of meditation until finally settling on Vedic meditation, where you repeat a sound or a word in your mind as you meditate. Now, meditation definitely gave me calmness, but more interestingly, it gave me clarity of thought. I found that as I meditated, the noise surrounding many of the decisions I was grappling with would fall away, and I was able to focus on the essence of whatever it was that I was solving for. And so when I headed back to work after this sabbatical that I had ran away on, I found meditation to be one of the most effective tools I had for managing myself both in and out of work. Now, I worked for another 3 years until I stepped down as CEO of my company in 2022. And then I had 18 months before coming to Stanford to really dive into spirituality again. This time, I went to philosophy classes, to group meditations. I studied Stoicism, Buddhism, and different denominations of Christianity. But most interestingly, I started going to Catholic Bible class every Monday evening, even though I wasn't Catholic. We studied a lot of different content and stories and information during the 6 months I was there. But there was one thing that stood above everything else, and I'd love to share that with you. We all choose to believe in something. We either choose to believe in ourselves or we choose to believe in something else. And if we choose to believe in something else, for example, God, we can finally give ourselves permission to take some of the weight and burdens of life off of our shoulders and ask for help. We no longer need to feel absolute responsibility for every single situation we might find ourselves in, every single decision we might have to make, or every misstep we might take along the way. Now, as somebody who used to be an atheist, I know that this requires a real leap of faith. But this had a profound effect on me. And so just as meditation had given me greater clarity of thought, studying Catholicism and Christianity gave me a new lightness for approaching life. And ever since, I've been able to harness both of those feelings and really learn from them. Now, along the way, I also found that this lightness that you might acquire as an extension also might make you finally believe that you do not need to be in control of everything in this unpredictable world. And that was another huge realization for me. A recent manifestation of this is that at the end of last year, I went to a concert. And if you know me, I almost never go to concerts. The music was great, but the acoustics were terrible. And to this day, almost 4 months later, I still have a ringing in my left ear. Now, 3 years ago, I would have berated myself. Why did I go in the first place? But to my great surprise, I've been quite calm about the whole thing. I realized that I was not in control, and so I haven't spent much energy worrying about it. Now, this idea of not being in control is of course not exclusive to Catholicism. It's also central in Buddhism and many other spiritual traditions. And this gets to the core of one of the biggest realizations I've had over the last few years. You see, I used to believe that if I wanted to climb the mountain of spirituality, I would have to pick one path up the mountain, one true faith to follow for decades, and maybe at some point I would reap the benefits. But from the last years of exploring, I found that not only do those benefits come much sooner, but that there are many paths up the mountain, and I find that they cross and that they converge. And so the last story I want to tell you today is one that really reinforced this idea for me. At the end of last year, I had the chance to listen to a spiritual leader from the religion of Sikhism. And she told us of a story of a practice she has developed for every evening before she goes to bed. She asks herself, if the day that has just passed represented my entire lifetime, would I be at peace with dying? Now, this question makes us focus on what is essential for us in life to be at peace with where we are, rather than putting those important things off into the future once we've achieved material success. I wonder how you would answer that question tonight. The first time I asked myself that, the answer was no, I wasn't at peace. But then I asked myself why. And I found that my hesitation only came down to a few fairly clear reasons. One of those reasons was that I felt I hadn't shown my wife the love I would have wanted her to feel if it really was our last day together, or indeed our lifetime together. And so ever since that day, I have really focused on prioritizing the things I need to feel at peace with the idea of not waking up tomorrow. And that has given me such a greater level of peace of mind. Now, I'm not an expert in any religion, any spiritual tradition, or any school of philosophy. But what I have been is open and curious. And through that, I've achieved a greater sense of clarity through meditation, a lightness for approaching life through studying Catholicism, and a greater peace of mind through a Sikh-inspired practice. But like many of you, I still continue to struggle with the balance of the challenges when climbing the mountain of materialism, with the adventures of climbing the mountain of spirituality. But I have found that these two pursuits can be so complementary of each other. But even then, we all have a fundamental question to ask ourselves. As we look up the mountain of materialism and the mountain of spirituality, we must ask ourselves, which one of these mountains is it more meaningful and more fulfilling to climb higher up during our lifetimes? Thank you.